We currently have a faction restricted spider tournament that is going on right now. And in it, you can only use champions from the corrupted factions. So that is Demon Spawn, Dark Elves, Undead Hordes, and Knights Revenant. And in response to that tournament, yesterday I posted this video where I showed you how you can solo Spider 10 hard mode with a single Knights Revenant champion that you get as a free login reward. That is Eric's, but of course you don't get Eric's until about 2 years into the game. So in some of the comments for this video, some players said, well, this is a cool video, Colred, but I'm only 6 months into the game. What about me? And you know what? That's completely fair. So in today's video, we're going to take on this Spider tournament again. But instead of looking at Spider 10 hard mode, we're going to drop down to Spider 20 of normal mode, because that's basically where you should be farming these tournaments anyway. We're going to theory craft a whole bunch of teams that are much more accessible using some rares, some epics, some free champions that everybody can get. And hopefully one of these team compositions will work for you in this tournament. I am Colred. This is Colred Plays Raid Shadow Legends. Let's get started. Just a quick reminder to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and consider joining our Discord community. And don't forget to catch our next Takeover Tuesday live stream, February 4th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. I hope to see you there. Here we are on stage 20 of normal Spider's Den. Now, this video is not going to be a complete guide on the Spider's Den. So if you're looking for a more thorough explanation of the fight, I highly recommend you search my YouTube channel. I have several videos that can explain this in more depth. But for today's video, I just want to remind you of a few things about this fight. The first is that at stage 20 of normal, and all the normal stages, the spider boss can be turn meter controlled and slowed. So that's one way to control the flow of this fight a little bit, and we're going to utilize some of that. The second thing I want to remind you of is that there is no max HP hit cap at stage 20. That actually kicks in at stage 21. So if you have a cold heart or a husk or somebody who does max HP nukes, you can actually do a ton of damage to this boss. And so there are basically two damage approaches. You can use HP burns or you can use direct damage. You can even use a mix of the two. We'll use all of that in today's video, but I just wanted to put those things out there so you understand sort of the foundational points of how we're going to theory craft this team. Now, in most cases, it's best to use what we call a spiderling tank. That is a champion who's going to be tanky enough to survive getting hit by a lot of the spiderlings. You don't have to have a spiderling tank. There are strategies where you can just either nuke out the boss so fast it doesn't matter, or you can control the spiderlings in other ways. But most people go with a spiderling tank. And there is a really good spiderling tank that we have available to us for free. So let me go here and just pick the factions and the 6-star champions. And so the spiderling tank that you probably want to use is Drexthar. Drexthar is absolutely perfect for this, and he's free. He's available from the Arena Bazaar. So 3v3 Arena gets you the metal bars, and you can use those to buy his fragments. I think it's one fragment every 24 hours, so it takes you about 100 days, a little bit more than that, to get Drexthar. But we all have access to him, and he's perfect for this because not only is he tanky, but he's weak affinity, so he's going to pull in those spiderling attacks, and when he gets attacked, he has a passive that allows him to place HP burns on his attackers. You can use him unbooked. It's not a 100% chance to place the HP burns regardless of if he's booked or not. So this is a really good budget option, and he's usable in a lot of other ways. He's got an AoE provoke. You can use him in Hydra. He's a very good champion. However, there's another great tank as well, which I want to mention that some of you might have gotten for free, and that is Ultimate Death Knight. Now, he works really well in a PvP build here. So if you have him in a slow stone skin build, that's absolutely perfect because that means he's going to resist a lot of that spiderling damage and those poison debuffs. But you don't need him in stone skin, and you can certainly run him faster. He's got sustain, he's got a shield, he's got a decrease attack. A lot of good skills here. Plus, if you use Ultimate Death Knight, it doesn't matter who else you bring into the fight. He will always be the spiderling tank because of his passive. Remember that all attacks that are single target attacks, one hit single target attacks, will be redirected to Ultimate Death Knight. So you can just use him with all weak affinity champions if you wanted to, and it would be fine. He would still end up being the tank. So if you want to use Drexthar, that's great, but then you have to limit the rest of the champions probably to neutral or strong affinity champions. So no other force affinity champions can be mixed in really well with Drexthar. So let's go ahead and start with this. We're going to use Drexthar as our spiderling tank. And if we're going this route, then we're probably not going to go HP burn, because I don't have an HP burn that is strong affinity or neutral affinity. My only, actually, I guess I do. I have Drang. We could use that. Do we want to? No, because then I have to bring in healers, right? And all of my healers are weak affinity. I don't have any strong affinity healers. So I think what we're going to do instead is we're going to use Drexthar, and then we're going to go max HP nukers. So I'm going to bring in 2 cold hearts. You certainly don't have to have 2 cold hearts. You could do this with 1. In fact, let's just do this with 1. We'll do this with 1. I'm going to want to bring in some sustain for Drexthar, but I really don't want to bring in another force affinity healer like Rector Drath, who's great for this, by the way. She's awesome for this. I could bring in Sinesha. She's pretty good for this as well, but again, she's weak affinity. Same thing with Doom Priest. So I'm kind of stuck here on healers. I basically have one good option, I think, that I have built, and that is going to be Painkeeper. So Painkeeper is going to give me a little bit of healing. It's also going to reduce the cooldown of the Heartseeker from Cold Heart. So that's excellent. And then I guess, if we had a cleanser or a block debuffs champion, that would be really good. Since I don't have that, I would like to get a slow onto the boss if possible. So let's go ahead and try Morrigan here. So this is, she has a slow on her A1. I'll go ahead and show you Morrigan. Again, you don't need a legendary in this role. My Morrigan isn't particularly well built. But she does have a 50% chance on her A1 to decrease speed. That's great. We want that decreased speed on the boss. Actually, you know what? Let's not do that. If we're doing this, then we really don't need the spiderlings to go, because we're basically using Cold Heart to kill the boss. So let's actually bring in Sylar instead. Sylar will put a slow on everybody, including the spiderlings. She's got turn meter reduction for everybody. So this is even better than Morrigan. She's a little more accessible as a Void Epic. You can see mine isn't fully built out, but she is a +4, so that kind of evens out the stats a little bit. And then we need another champion here who could either help control the turn meter of the boss, or give us a little bit of additional healing or cooldowns or something. Maybe some debuffs would be nice. Why don't we go with Anix? Anix. Okay, so he's going to bring us a decreased defense and a weaken, which is going to help Cold Heart's nuke go a little bit harder. So this should be a good enough team, right? Everybody is neutral affinity except for Drexthar, so Drexthar should hopefully pull all of the spiderling attacks. He'll light some of them on fire. We'll get some value from the HP burns. But the rest of it is just literally going to be Cold Heart nuking out this boss, and Anix doing some damage as well. What I should probably do is put this into the team setup. Now, what I want to do with this team is I want to give them some commands. I need to know their speeds. So Cold Heart goes first. She's the fastest champion, I believe. Yeah, she's the fastest champion. So I'd rather have the debuffs out there from Anix before Cold Heart hits. So I'm going to have her just open with her A2. And then we're going to have Anix. And he can use, it doesn't matter. I guess we're going to want him to open with his weaken. Do we care about this? We kind of don't. Okay. So we'll get the weaken out. Now, Sylar can put a decreased speed and push back the turn meter of all of the enemies. So that's good. She also has an AoE with a decreased accuracy, and then she has an AoE on her A1. I believe I have her in a stun set. So we're going to get some stuns out there on the spiderlings as well, which all of that's good. The decreased accuracy does play, right? Because we can reduce the accuracy on the spiderlings, and then we have Drexthar be a little bit more resistant. So we're just going to open with the A3 to get that slow out there. We don't want Painkeeper to open with her cooldown reduction or her heal, so we're just going to have her open with her A1, and then we'll probably go into the cooldown reduction. And then Cold Heart, yeah, we'll do that. And then it doesn't matter what Drexthar does, basically. And again, here's the passive that has a chance to put HP burns on the spiderlings. Simple enough. I don't know how long it's going to take, but let's fire this off. This should work. Again, speeds are going to matter. You know, the tankiness of Drexthar is going to matter. How hard your Cold Heart is hitting is all going to matter. but I'm more concerned with putting together a good team composition that makes sense and covers all of my roles. So again, controlling the spiderlings here with slows and turn meter reductions and stuns is all helpful. That's going to keep Drexlar alive. I don't have a ton of healing here. He doesn't have regeneration. He doesn't have immortal. I think he's just in perception gear. So he doesn't have a lot of natural sustain here. All of the sustain that he's getting is basically going to be from the Painkeeper. I think I don't know if there's something else that he's got. I don't know if somewhere in his passive he gets a little bit of healing. But as you can see, Cold Heart hits really, really hard, right? Because remember, no max HP hit cap. And you don't have to have Cold Heart. Another option for these 4 factions would be Husk. Husk has a max HP nuke. The nice thing about Cold Heart is she also reduces the turn meter of the boss on that nuke. So I like this comp. You know, it's relatively accessible here. We've got 2 epics, 2 rares. They're both void rares, and 1 free legendary. So very free to play friendly. And again, you don't have to have Annex. You don't have to have Sylar in this. You can use other champions in those roles. If you have more healing, you can just keep Drexlar alive, and then it doesn't matter. You don't have to do the turn meter control as much. Having turn meter control on the boss is always good, though. So 1:16 seconds here. Most of that's based on the fact that I have a very hard-hitting Cold Heart. So for you, it might take 2 minutes, but that would be totally fine as long as you have a 100% chance of completing this stage. All right, so let's go back to the team here. And now let's talk about an HP burn team composition. So instead of the Cold Heart, let's pull the Cold Heart out. We would want an HP burn composition. We're not going to use Drexlar here because for me, all of my... No, I guess I could still, because I do have... I keep thinking that I need to use Sissy of Flame Tongue, who is awesome, by the way. But I don't actually need to use Sissy of Flame Tongue because I do have Walking Tomb Drang. We're going to put Walking Tomb Drang in here. Now, in this case, we want to pull out Sylar because we don't want to reduce the speed of the spiderling. This is where we can bring in Morrigan. Now, she's the only champion I have built in these factions, I think, that gives me a decreased speed on the A1 that will only land on the boss. So if you have somebody else that you can use to do that, doesn't have to be Morrigan. But this is useful. It's also not 100% necessary. I guess we don't have to use this. We could go in another direction. Let's see. Who else do we have? We could bring in more damage. We could bring in more healing. We don't really need more healing. Yeah, so I don't see anybody who I absolutely need here. I guess I could put in a Renegade to just get back around to Drang's HP burns a little bit faster. Now we get a lot of cooldown reduction. But that's fine. Or maybe I could do that. Should probably end up pulling, but it might not matter. All right, so let's go ahead and try this. And I'm not going to put it back into the AI. Let's just go ahead and run it and see what happens. So Walking Tomb Drang is nice here because he doesn't need accuracy. He's just going to land his HP burns. Now here again, we want those spiderlings to go. You can see the HP burns ticking on the boss. If we could still turn meter control the boss and slow the boss, that would be great. So Morrigan with that slow, Skimfos with 100% turn meter steal. Again, Cold Heart would work really well in this particular team composition. But as you can see, those HP burns do a pretty good job. We've got, 20% of the damage. The boss just healed, so now we're going to get a lot more damage out there. The Annex is landing some poisons, weakens, decreased defense. The other nice thing about Drang you just saw there is he has an HP balancing effect. So when he does that, you're basically going to heal up to full for the whole team. So this is a very survivable team with our Doom Priest and with our Painkeeper and with our Drang. So we don't really have to worry about Drexlar dying here, hopefully. And the HP burns will do the majority of the work. Again, I probably could have brought in Rector Drath just to have a reviver. That wouldn't be a bad idea in case Drang went down. She'd also bring in more survivability, but I was trying to limit the number of Force Affinity champions I brought in. Okay, so that Reaper actually did a little bit of, that was counterproductive there, right? Because by killing the spiderlings, they didn't actually get their HP burns off. But you can see this is not much slower than the previous team. So we're going under 2 minutes here. Minute 45, pretty solid. And again, you don't have to have Drang here. You could have Akoth the Seared. And if you do have Akoth, he is strong affinity. Again, he won't be the tank, the Spiderling tank. You just need to keep your Spiderling tank alive. And Drex can actually do this basically on his own if he were in Regen and Immortal or with a high resistance build or both. I just don't have him in that build. Okay, so now we've got an HP burn composition. Let's go and do another composition here, which would be maybe a little bit faster. We're not turn meter controlling this boss at all, right? We're not putting a slow out there. We're not doing anything with that. We're just going to nuke as hard as we can. And basically, let's see who's faster, Sissia or Whisper. Whisper is 1 point slower, so she can do whatever she wants because Sissia is going to open with her A3. We should be good. So let's see how this team does. Again, you know, this is maybe a little bit less free-to-play friendly because of the Sissy and the UDK. Some of you still have UDK who you got for free, and some of you, you know, you can use Akoth in this role. I just like Sissia because she brings a decreased defense and a weaken, and she activates the HP burns, which should make it a little bit faster. But she has weak affinities, so she will miss sometimes. And that's okay too, right? So yeah, you can see she's getting hit by the Spiderlings, but all of the hits are actually going over to the UDK. I have mine in Stone Skin, so he's not even taking poisons yet or damage yet. Eventually he will, but he's tanky enough it won't matter. And we've got Rector Drath for an emergency revive just in case. And again, we're not actually handling any kind of turn meter control here. We're just going ahead and nuking the boss. We'll see if this is a little bit faster than the last run. It might be. Might not be. Who knows? Another nice thing about Rector Drath is she has a decreased attack. Again, she's also weak affinity, but she might land that decreased attack, which would be really useful. One thing to know about Whisper and any extra turn mechanic champions is they can become the Spiderling targets because they outrun buffs. And there are some buffs that the Spiderlings will try to avoid. So for instance, if you have an increased defense on your tank and Whisper outruns that increased defense, the Spiderlings may jump over to Whisper. Now, in this particular case, it doesn't matter because our tank is UDK, so he just tanks with his passive. You don't actually care about him pulling the hits himself. But if you were using Drexlar, that could be a situation that would, cause a problem. So this is not going to be faster. It's actually going to be slower. If I had brought in Cold Heart, it would have been faster. It would have been a lot faster with Cold Heart. But I wanted to show you that you can use weak affinity champions here, specifically if you have UDK. It's just not a problem to bring in weak affinity champs. Almost done. Come on, finish it off, Whisper. There we go. 2 minutes and 9 seconds. Not awful. Not awful. And just to go back one more time and talk about a couple of other champions that if you have, you might want to consider. One that I really like for this fight is actually Wither. If you have Wither, she can be your tank. She can go in the lead. You can see I just realized this was a Doom Tower resistance aura. I thought that was everywhere. So that didn't help us any. So you'd probably want, I guess you'd want UDK. Yeah, that would have been better. But Wither has ally resistance in all battles. Plus she has a cleanse. Plus she has an AoE hit. Plus she has an increased defense. Plus she has continuous heals. Plus she has a straight up heal. This is an excellent champion, and you can build her tanky. You could put her in Regen and Immortal. She's going to be your Spiderling tank. She's going to do a great job here as well. Again, another legendary, but I just want to give you more options there. One champion that you can bring in who's really cheap in order to give you some turn meter control on the Spiderlings and the boss, you can bring in Diabolist. She's going to be strong affinity, so she's never going to weak hit. She has a turn meter reduction, and then she has an increased speed for your team. She doesn't actually have a slow, though. So that is something to consider. And yeah, so, you could go with a relatively cheap, like if we wanted to do an all kind of free and rare situation here, we could do something like maybe like this. This would probably work pretty well. So now you're talking about 4 rares and a free legendary. And again, yes, it's 2 cold hearts. I know not everybody has their cold hearts. But again, you can bring in any direct damage nukers here. You could also actually try like a renegade. One of the nice things about renegade is she does have a slow. So she might land that slow on the boss, and then, you can turn meter control a lot more here. So this could work as well. Just some other options to throw out there for you to consider. Oh, and then finally, if you happen to have gone quite a while and you have your Lydia, get your Lydia in there, right? Because that increased speed, decreased defense, and weaken, all of those are great in combo with direct damage style team compositions. So you could certainly use this or any other champions that bring a combination of decreased defense and weaken, like we said we were using before with Annex, right? So he brings them both, not on the same skill, but it's also a good way to do more direct damage. So whether you're using the HP burn method or the direct damage method, there are a ton of champions here. Remember, if the fight goes long, you're going to need more survivability. So consider healers, cleansers, block debuff buffers, and revivers if you need them. Okay, that is it for this one. Let me know in the comments below if this helped you out and what your team composition is for stage 20 of Spider Den Normal for this faction limited tournament. That is it for me today. Thanks for hanging out. I've been Colred. I will see you in another video soon.